The void of space stretched endlessly, a dark sea dotted with distant stars. The Death Worlders' fleet glided silently, a massive shadow moving through the cosmic ocean. Their ships were built for war, their weapons deadly, their intent clear: conquer or destroy anything that dared oppose them. But in all their years of war, there was one rule they followed: never underestimate silence. Yet, that is exactly what they did. Far away, on the edge of human space, a small, fragile-looking colony world spun lazily in the orbit of a quiet sun. Its forests were thick, its oceans deep, and its cities modest, almost primitive compared to the war machines of the galaxy. To the Death Worlders, this planet seemed insignificant, a world barely worth noting, much less fearing. Commander Varric, the leader of the Death Worlder fleet, stood on the bridge of the flagship, his multiple eyes scanning the stars. He was proud, arrogant, and confident. "Prepare the assault drones," he ordered, his voice low but commanding. "These humans have made no move. They are weak, easy targets." His officers nodded, their weapon systems humming to life. The fleet waited for the signal, ready to descend like predators on unsuspecting prey. And yet, despite the immense power surrounding them, a strange unease filled the air. Something was off. Meanwhile, on the human colony world, alarms rang. Not in panic, but in urgent warning. Lieutenant Mara Kinsley stood at the observation deck of Colony Command, staring at the dark expanse beyond their planet's atmosphere. Her face was pale, her heart racing. "They're here," she whispered. Mara's world was not ready for a full-scale assault. Their fleet was small, their defenses minimal. But humans had survived against worse odds before. They had always survived by thinking, by planning, by using the unexpected as their greatest weapon. The first signal came, a distress beacon, an old, desperate call for help. It blinked weakly in the void, almost insignificant. But Mara knew better. Every message sent in desperation carried a weight, a truth too dangerous to ignore. She sent a warning to Earth Command. "The Death Worlders are moving. They found us. They believe we are weak. They are wrong." Back in the Death Worlder flagship, Varric laughed. "Weak? Look at them. They hide in their pathetic little planet. They make no move. Soon, their world will belong to us." His laugh echoed through the metal corridors, a sound both chilling and arrogant. The humans, however, were not as powerless as they seemed. Deep beneath the surface of their cities, hidden bunkers and orbital weapons hummed to life. Sensors flickered, shields raised, and weapon systems calibrated. Mara and her team moved swiftly, their movements precise, practiced, and deadly. "Commander," said her second-in-command, Lieutenant Jorn, his voice tight with tension. "They outnumber us 1,000 to 1. If they attack directly, we won't survive." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Then we won't let them attack directly," she replied. "We make them think we are weak. We make them think we are afraid. Silence is our shield." Meanwhile, the Death Worlder fleet advanced. Their ships blazed a trail across space, cutting through the darkness with cold efficiency. Scout ships moved ahead, scanning the system for any signs of resistance. They found nothing. No defensive measures, no fleet waiting, no signs of human aggression. Varric's confidence grew. "They will fall easily," he muttered. "Silence is their surrender. We will not fail." But silence can be deceiving. On the human side, Mara watched the Death Worlders approach. Every system was online, every weapon ready, every human soldier at their post. They were ready to fight. But the fight would not be what the Death Worlders expected. Humans did not rely on brute force alone. They relied on ingenuity, on strategy, on turning weakness into strength. The first contact was quiet, almost too quiet. A single scout drone from the Death Worlders entered the orbit, scanning for defenses. It found none. The drone transmitted its findings back to the fleet. No resistance detected. Prepare assault. That was the moment the trap was set. In a hidden orbital station, humans activated a series of automated defense systems. Lasers fired in calculated bursts, destroying the scout drone in an instant. It was a small victory, but a signal of what was coming. The Death Worlders would soon learn that silence was not weakness. Varric's sensors picked up the destruction. Confusion spread through the bridge. Impossible, he hissed. There should be nothing here. Mara's heart pounded, but she remained calm. Let them come, she whispered. Let them see what we can do. As the Death Worlders' fleet prepared to strike, the humans unleashed more than just weapons. Decoys, traps, and ambushes turned the calm space into a deadly puzzle. Ships vanished into hidden wormholes, missiles detonated far ahead of their targets, and communications became a web of false signals. The Death Worlders, confident and arrogant, fell into the trap. Ships were disabled, entire wings forced a retreat, and confusion spread. Varric could not believe it. How can this be? He shouted. They are supposed to be weak. But humans were never weak. They were clever. They were patient. And they were ready to pay any price for survival. Back on the colony world, Mara watched the unfolding chaos from the command center. She did not smile, nor did she celebrate. There was still much to do. This was only the beginning. The Death Worlders had declared war, but humans had declared something far more dangerous. Their refusal to be defeated. As night fell over the colony world, the stars above burned silently, witnesses to the first moves of a war that would shake the galaxy. The Death Worlders were confident, blinded by arrogance. The humans were quiet, unseen, and deadly. And in that silence, the first call of battle echoed, a desperate call that would change everything. The screen on Mara's console blinked with incoming messages from other colonies. Each one told the same story. Death Worlder ships had been sighted. Panic was rising among civilians, but the military remained calm. Mara knew fear could be a weapon if controlled. It could sharpen focus. It could make decisions faster. It could make humans unpredictable. Prepare the citizens for a possible evacuation, she said, and prepare the fleet. We will show them that silence is not surrender. In the distance, a lone Death Worlder ship broke formation, scanning the planet's surface. It sent images back to flagship, showing the forests, the cities, the quiet humans who had made no move to attack. Varric laughed again, but there was a flicker of doubt in his mind. A tiny doubt. For the first time in many years, the Death Worlders sensed that perhaps, just perhaps, they had underestimated something. Something dangerous. Something human. The colony world waited, silent yet alive, ready to strike. The first shots of the war were yet to come. But the stage was set, and somewhere in the shadows, Mara prepared her desperate call. The call that would awaken a galaxy to the strength hidden in silence. The Death Worlders thought the humans were weak. They thought silence meant surrender. They were wrong, and the galaxy would soon learn the cost of that mistake. The stars seemed calm as the Death Worlder fleet approached the human colony world, their immense shadows cutting across the void. Commander Varric's pride had grown after the initial silence. Pathetic humans, he said to his officers. They hide. They do nothing. Soon, their planet will be ours. No resistance. No fight. Yet, confidence is a dangerous companion in war. In the hidden bunkers beneath the human cities, Lieutenant Mara Kinsley paced quietly. She watched her fleet on the holographic display, noting the positions of every approaching ship. Unlike the Death Worlders, humans did not rely solely on brute force. Strategy, cunning, and patience were their true weapons. Joran, initiate the first sequence, Mara commanded, her voice calm but resolute. The lights on the display blinked in perfect sequence. Hidden drones launched from the orbital stations, moving swiftly and silently, unseen by the Death Worlder sensors. These were not ordinary drones. They were decoys, each carrying miniature warheads programmed to create false targets. The Death Worlder scanners detected multiple threats, spreading their attention thin. Varric frowned at the reports coming in. Why are their defenses activating now? They should be weak. There should be nothing here. Perhaps it is a trick, suggested one officer. But doubt was rare in the Death Worlder ranks. Confidence was bred, arrogance reinforced. They assumed victory was inevitable, but the humans were ready. Suddenly, a series of small explosions rocked the outer perimeter of the colony. Scout drones were destroyed, some disabled, and others vanished entirely. From the Death Worlder perspective, it looked like chaos, like the humans were panicking, like their defenses were weak. This was exactly what Mara had intended. She smiled faintly. Let them think we are losing, she whispered. Let them come closer. Let them make mistakes. As the fleet crossed the human world's orbit, the trap fully revealed itself. Hidden orbital cannons opened fire, striking multiple Deathworlder ships in coordinated bursts. The weapons were advanced, precise, and devastating. Entire wings of ships were forced to retreat or suffer heavy damage. Varric's multiple eyes widened in shock. Impossible. They have no fleet, no defenses, yet they are striking us. Meanwhile, Mara deployed the next layer of her trap. Small, maneuverable human fighters emerged from asteroid fields, striking at the flanks of the Deathworlder formation. They darted in and out, leaving trails of destruction behind. Each strike was calculated, designed to draw the enemy deeper into the trap. On board the Deathworlder flagship, chaos spread. Communications were jammed by human interference, forcing officers to rely on visual reports. Panic whispered through the ranks, something the fleet had not experienced in decades. Varric bellowed orders. Regroup, fire at will, do not let them escape. But humans had planned for this. Mines hidden in the planet's orbit activated, exploding near the regrouping fleet and forcing ships to scatter. Human technology was not just offensive, it was clever, unpredictable, and deadly. On the colony's surface, Mara observed every move, her mind racing through calculations. Focus on the wing commanders, she instructed. Force them into the ambush points. Do not let them see the bigger picture yet. The Deathworlders were strong, but they were not prepared for strategy. Strength without understanding can be a fatal flaw, and now it became clear that the humans were masters of the unseen battlefield. Varric's pride began to crack under pressure. Reports of lost ships, unexpected strikes, and strange signals filled the bridge. They cannot do this, he muttered. We outnumber them. They cannot fight like this. They are not fighting like we expect, one officer admitted quietly. It is clever, deceptive, almost human. Almost human. That phrase echoed in Varric's mind. He had faced countless civilizations, countless species, yet never had he encountered opponents who used intelligence as a weapon. The humans were not just hiding. They were luring the Deathworlders into a carefully prepared nightmare. As the Deathworlders pressed forward, believing they were in control, humans initiated the next phase. Orbital platforms shifted, creating visual illusions of vast fleets. The Deathworlder sensors recorded hundreds of phantom ships, doubling the perceived strength of human forces. Fear began to creep into their ranks, a foreign emotion to the proud warriors. At the same time, Mara's team deployed cyber attacks on the enemy ship's navigation systems. Systems malfunctioned, ships collided, and formation broke down. The Deathworlders had the firepower, but humans controlled the battlefield, forcing chaos to their advantage. Then came the final strike of this phase. Hidden missile arrays fired in synchronized bursts, cutting through enemy shields with surgical precision. Ships exploded silently in the void, each one a statement. Silence is not weakness, patience is power, and cunning is deadly. Varric roared in rage. What trick is this? Who dares fight like this? Humans, sir, one officer whispered. They have underestimated us. We are trapped. Yes, the Deathworlders were trapped, and they did not yet realize the full extent. The humans were not merely defending. They were dictating the battle. Every move, every attack, every retreat was calculated to exact maximum damage while preserving human lives. Mara's calm voice echoed across the command center. Phase 2 complete. They are reacting exactly as expected. Prepare Phase 3. What is Phase 3? Joran asked, curiosity mixed with concern. Mara's eyes gleamed with determination. We make them think they are winning. Then we remind them why humans are never to be underestimated. Back in the depths of space, a Deathworlder destroyer attempted to breach the planetary defenses, firing its main cannons. But Mara had anticipated this. A magnetic pulse disabled its weapons, leaving it vulnerable. Human fighters swooped in, disabling its engines and forcing surrender, or destruction, across the battlefield. Similar scenes played out. The Deathworlders' confidence crumbled as every tactic they expected to succeed failed miserably. They had relied on silence to mean weakness, but every silent human move was a step into their own trap. Commander Varric, an officer reported, we are taking losses at unprecedented rates. They're adapting faster than we can predict. Varric clenched his fists. Pride and rage warred within him. He had never faced a species that turned apparent weakness into a weapon. Every silent human decision was a calculated strike. Every inaction was a trap. And the humans were not done yet. On the colony world, Mara monitored the battlefield, noting patterns, exploiting weaknesses, and predicting the enemy's next moves. The humans had learned from history, from countless battles against stronger foes. They knew patience, precision, and intelligence could outweigh sheer power. As night fell over the colony's forests and cities, the Death Worlders were forced to retreat slightly, regrouping in a defensive formation they had never needed before. The humans did not pursue immediately. They allowed the enemy to believe they had survived the first assault. But Mara knew better. This was only the beginning. Phase 3 would be a strike that would echo across the galaxy, a demonstration of human ingenuity and power that would leave the Death Worlders shaken to their core. And yet, even as humans celebrated small victories, Mara felt the weight of the battle ahead. The Death Worlders were not defeated. They were merely learning that humans were not what they seemed, and learning would make them dangerous. In the shadows of space, the fleet of death and destruction lingered, unaware that they had walked into a trap carefully designed for their arrogance. And somewhere in the hidden command centers of the humans, Mara prepared for the next move, the one that would turn the tide, reveal the strength hidden in silence, and declare that humans were not weak. They were unpredictable and unstoppable. The trap had been revealed, and the Death Worlders would never forget it. The galaxy held its breath. Across the cold void of space, the Death Worlder fleet regrouped, their massive ships reflecting the distant starlight like jagged metal beasts. Commander Varric's pride had been wounded, and with each damaged ship, his anger grew. He had underestimated humans, a mistake he would pay dearly for. Yet, arrogance does not die easily. Varric gritted his teeth. Prepare for full assault, he barked. Crush them. Show them no mercy. Let them learn that silence is not safety. Let them burn. In the hidden command center on the human colony world, Lieutenant Mara Kinsley watched the fleet's movements with calm precision. Every ship, every weapon, every strategy was accounted for. Humans were outnumbered, yes, but numbers meant little when strategy reigned supreme. Joran, Mara said, her voice steady. It is time. Initiate Phase 4, the fire sequence. The Death Worlders did not know it yet, but every move they had made since entering human space had been anticipated. Every strike they expected to succeed had failed. Every weak point they assumed existed was a trap. Now, humans would turn silence into a storm. From the orbital platforms, human warships emerged, sleek, small, and fast. Unlike the massive Death Worlder dreadnoughts, these ships relied on agility and clever design. They struck in sudden bursts, disappearing before the enemy could respond. Laser fire streaked across space, precision hits taking down key engines and weapon systems. Varric's multiple eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible, he shouted. They are hitting critical systems without even being in range. They are fast, too fast, muttered one officer, fear creeping into his voice for the first time. And yet, the humans were not done. Mara had prepared something the Death Worlders could never have predicted. Hidden in the asteroid belt on the planet's far side, a fleet of automated war drones lay dormant, silent as shadows. At Mara's signal, they activated, moving in perfect synchronization, attacking the Death Worlders from angles they could not track. Explosions lit the void. Ships that had been confident moments before were now scattered, their formation broken, their pride shattered. The humans did not chase recklessly. They waited, observed, and struck again. Back on the Death Worlder flagship, Varric slammed his clawed hands onto the console. This cannot be. They are weak. They are insignificant. How can this be? Sir, an officer whispered. They are humans. It seems their silence was a trap. Every movement we thought we controlled is now controlled by them. Varric's rage boiled. He had faced countless enemies, countless civilizations, but never had he encountered a species that turned patience into a weapon. Silence was a shield. Strategy was a sword, and humans wielded both with deadly precision. On the colony world, Mara monitored the chaos. She watched the Death Worlders' fleet falter, their movements predictable only because humans had designed the battlefield this way. She smiled faintly. The first stage of the trap was working perfectly, but she knew better than to celebrate. The Death Worlders were proud, and pride could make them dangerous. Suddenly, one of the Death Worlder command ships broke formation, attempting a direct strike on the colony's main orbital station. Mara's heart raced, not with fear, but with anticipation. This was the moment she had been waiting for. "Deploy the Firestorm," she ordered. From the hidden bays of the orbital station, a network of plasma cannons and missiles launched in perfect sequence. The Death Worlder ship, massive and confident, was hit from multiple angles. Shields faltered, engines failed, and it drifted helplessly before a final precision strike tore it apart. "Impressive," Joran whispered, "I'll mix with relief. They're not invincible." "No species is," Mara replied. Her eyes scanned the holographic battlefield. There were more Death Worlder ships, more threats. Humans were winning the battle, yes, but the war was far from over. Across space, the Death Worlders struggled to maintain control. Systems failed, formations collapsed, and morale crumbled. For the first time, they were tasting fear, not the fear of death, but the fear of being outsmarted. Every plan they had, every assumption, had been used against them. Mara's strategy was simple in concept, but brilliant in execution. She had turned silence into a weapon, patience into a trap, and intelligence into an unstoppable force. The Death Worlders had assumed humans were weak. That was their fatal mistake. But even as humans struck, Mara knew she could not be reckless. The Death Worlders were still dangerous, still numerous. One misstep could turn victory into disaster. She needed to maintain control, to keep the enemy believing they had a chance, while the humans dictated the pace, the battlefield, and the outcome. And then came the twist, the element that would leave the Death Worlders reeling. From deep within the planet's core, humans activated hidden suborbital cannons, devices so advanced that even the Death Worlder sensors had never detected them. Massive beams of energy surged into space, striking multiple Death Worlder ships simultaneously. Entire wings were disabled in an instant. Varric could hardly comprehend what he was seeing. What is this?" he gasped. They have weapons we could not detect," muttered another officer, panic rising. "It is impossible." "Yes," Varric said through clenched teeth. "They are impossible." Mara's eyes did not leave the battlefield. Every action was calculated. Every strike designed to maximize damage while preserving human lives. She had no illusions about the cost of war, but the Death Worlders had chosen this path. They had declared war on humans, and now they would feel the full weight of that choice. The Death Worlders tried to regroup, but humans had anticipated it. Ambushes awaited, traps lay in every trajectory, and unseen drones struck from angles that made no sense. The galaxy had never seen warfare like this. Strategic, patient, precise, and mercilessly effective. Amid the chaos, Mara's communications buzzed. Citizens of the colony were being guided to secure shelters. Families were moved to safety while the battle raged above. Humans fought not just with weapons, but with cunning, with planning, with intellect. Varric's pride was shattered. He realized that strength alone could not win wars. Power could be neutralized by strategy. Confidence could be turned into vulnerability. And arrogance could be fatal. In the shadows of space, humans remained calm, unseen, yet deadly. Their silence had been a weapon, their patience, a trap, their intelligence, an unstoppable force. The Death Worlders had declared war, believing humans were weak. They had been wrong. And as the last ships of the first wave fell into chaos, Mara prepared the final stage of the human response. A strike that would change the course of the war, reveal the true power hidden behind silence, and force the Death Worlders to reconsider every assumption they had ever made about humanity. The galaxy watched silently as fire lit the void, as strategy met arrogance, and as humans proved that sometimes the quietest species could be the most dangerous. The trap was complete. The first stage of fire had been unleashed, and the Death Worlders would learn that underestimating humans was a mistake they would never live to repeat. The stars shone cold and distant, bearing witness to the moment when silence became fire, and the human spirit burned brighter than any weapon in the galaxy. The void of space was no longer silent. Explosions lit the darkness, streaks of fire marking the downfall of the once proud Deathworlder fleet. Commander Varric's flagship floated among debris, smoke and fire curling through corridors. He had expected victory, and yet here he was, surrounded by ruin, forced to watch as his empire's strength crumbled. On the human side, Lieutenant Mara Kinsley observed the battlefield from the command center. Every strike, every movement, every trap had worked exactly as planned. She did not smile. She had learned long ago that victory was not measured by destroyed ships alone, but by the survival of her people and the lessons learned from every encounter. The Deathworlders had made one fatal mistake. They had assumed silence meant weakness. They had misjudged humanity entirely. And now they were paying the price. Even as the humans celebrated small victories, Mara remained vigilant. The enemy was beaten but not broken. There were still pockets of resistance, and the Deathworlders' pride was not easily extinguished. She knew they would retreat, lick their wounds, and perhaps return stronger. But for now, the humans had shown that strategy, patience, and intelligence could overcome overwhelming force. In the aftermath of the battle, Varric wandered the broken corridors of his flagship. Once a symbol of Deathworlder dominance, the ship now felt like a tomb. "We were wrong," he muttered, voice echoing through the metal halls. "We underestimated them. Humans? How can such small, fragile beings fight like this? They are unpredictable," one of his officers whispered. "They plan, they wait, they strike when least expected." "Yes," Varric replied grimly, "and now we know the cost of our arrogance." Far below, on the colony world, Mara's team worked tirelessly. Communications were restored, ships were repaired, and civilians were guided to safety. Even in the chaos, humanity had its order, its structure, its discipline. Mara felt a surge of pride, not for herself, but for her people. They had survived where survival seemed impossible. They had fought a force that believed strength alone could dominate the galaxy, and they had won through cleverness, courage, and calm resolve. Yet, even in victory, Mara felt unease. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown civilizations and threats beyond imagination. The Deathworlders had been only the first challenge. She knew this battle, though decisive, was but a single chapter in a much larger war. Varric's fleet limped away from the colony system, battered and humiliated. Ships that had once been symbols of terror were now drifting wrecks. Among the surviving crews, fear had replaced confidence. They had seen humans at their best, quiet, patient, and deadly, and that knowledge would haunt them for the rest of their lives. On board the human flagship, Mara allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. She thought of every life lost, every decision made, every strategy executed perfectly. War was never easy, and victory was never without cost. Yet, this battle had proven a simple truth. Humans were not weak. Silence was not surrender. Patience was a weapon, and intelligence, properly wielded, could overcome even the most formidable foes. A signal blipped on her console. Mara's eyes narrowed as she read the message. It was a distress call, not from humans, but from a distant star system beyond their current war zone. Something new, something unknown, something far greater than the Deathworlders. "Joran," Mara said, her tone sharp, "prepare the fleet. We may have won this battle, but the galaxy has only just begun to test us." Joran nodded, understanding the weight behind her words. Humans had survived countless threats, but the universe was vast and danger lurked in ways unseen. The victory against the Deathworlders was proof of human resilience, but it was also a warning. Complacency could be fatal. Meanwhile, Varric's thoughts were dark and brooding. He had underestimated humans, a mistake he would never forget. The cost of arrogance had been immense, and the Deathworlders' pride had been shattered. He plotted, quietly, patiently, knowing that one day he would return. But he would return wiser, more cautious, and the memory of his defeat would fuel his desire for revenge. On the human side, Mara prepared her people for what lay ahead. Ships were repaired, defenses strengthened, and civilians trained in survival procedures. The lesson of the Deathworlders was clear. Vigilance, intelligence, and preparation were as critical as courage and firepower. The colony world slowly returned to calm. The forests and oceans, scarred but resilient, seemed to breathe a quiet sigh of relief. Humans moved through the cities and command centers with purpose, repairing, rebuilding, and preparing. They had faced near annihilation and survived. They had turned silence into fire, patience into strategy, and weakness into a weapon. But the galaxy would not wait. Mara knew that. Beyond the stars, unknown threats lurked, watching, learning, and waiting for a moment of human vulnerability. And while the humans had proven their strength, they had also sent a message. Underestimate them at your peril. In the cold expanse of space, the Death Worlders retreated, carrying with them a warning they would never forget. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Stories of small, seemingly fragile species that had survived the impossible, that had turned silence into fire, that had declared, through action and intellect, that humans were not to be underestimated. Mara stood on the observation deck, gazing at the stars. She knew the cost of this victory, the lives lost, the fear endured, the battles fought. But she also knew the reward. Humans had proven their worth, not just to themselves, but to the galaxy. And in the quiet moments after battle, as stars burned cold above, she allowed herself a fleeting thought. The universe may be vast, full of danger, and unrelenting in its challenges, but humans would endure. And somewhere, far beyond the reaches of the defeated Deathworlders, a new threat stirred. It watched, unseen, calculating, and learning. The galaxy was far from safe, and the humans who had turned silent into fire would soon face a challenge greater than any they had imagined. The cost of underestimating humans had been paid in full, and the universe had taken notice. The stars remained silent witnesses as humanity prepared for what was to come. Their fires had burned bright. Their strategies had prevailed, and their courage had endured. But the galaxy was vast, and the next battle was already waiting beyond the horizon. In the command center, Mara looked at her team. Their faces were tired, scarred by the battle, but resolute. They had won. They had proven their strength, and they had sent a message that would echo across the stars. Humans were not weak. They were cunning, patient, and unstoppable. The cost of war had been high, but the lesson was clear. And as Mara prepared to send a final report to Earth Command, she knew one truth above all. The galaxy would never forget the day humans had turned silence into fire. And somewhere, in the shadows beyond human vision, new eyes watched, calculating and waiting. The next chapter was coming, and the universe would soon learn that underestimating humanity was a mistake that could never be forgiven.